don't mind Viego personally.
I think it's evolved to be Lee Sin.
Yeah.
I think in the LEC playoffs that we watched a few hours ago, I think the Viego priority was still up there. I don't know whether I agree with it. However, T1 are going to, as Trundle and Viego both locked in. Of course, Trundle a flex pick, especially for T1. So Viego could be going anywhere, Trundle could be going anywhere, and we'll see where T1 decide to put them after the draft is settled. Harmolife Esports now probably considering a bottom lane, and I'd like to put some carry potential down there, but no, it's going to be LeBlanc picked up, as Chovy's really taking it to Faker here, and now Camille as well. Some split push options for Harmolife Esports, and Morgan throwing the gauntlet, but obviously Faker now just has the Lissandra access if he would like it. We saw this work out so beautifully yesterday. Picking LeBlanc into fly though, that's a travesty. That is not allowed.
No.
Faker as well has played an extraordinary amount of Lissandra. We know how deep his champion pool is just in general, and this matchup is not great for the LeBlanc. So Harmolife Esports sort of walking head first into that Lissandra pick, is now T1 going to take away some of Vista's supports.
It's also the benefit of having played for so long that, like, basically every champion has been meta at some point. So, like, yeah, I played that for like 2 weeks in 2014. I'll be fine.
Yeah, imagine having like 600 hours worth of muscle memory on every possible mid lane champion. Oh, welcome to Faker, everyone.
Great. I do love the direction, though, here from Harmolife, because this is a draft that kind of beckons you, invites you to play very proactive. Now, into the T1 comp, not necessarily the easiest, because they do have in Trundle and Viego two very strong characters that really like skirmishing, finding early plays, with supposedly that Trundle going towards carrier. But there's, of course, some flex potential. You can also go Trundle jungle, Viego top is still a possibility. But Lee Sin and the LeBlanc are a very old combination with insane amounts of mobility, skirmishing power, and an uncanny knack for deleting champions off the map. Now, Lissandra specifically, not gonna happen, but if there is a Viego just randomly wandering about the river and he gets fought, found rather, by one of the two, thank you, then he gets blown up in seconds. Okay, wow, Ezreal. With things like the Varus still available, Kalista also not getting picked up, and I really like this from T1.
Why do I feel like Kai'Sa is going to be picked?
Yeah, I mean, Kai'Sa's great.
I'm a bit frightened.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Kai'Sa these days. Ashe, I am a big fan of, being able to scout out exactly where Ona's going to be. That's a Lulu being hovered, which is an interesting one. Looking to try and counter out some of the danger of the frozen tomb coming through from Faker. I don't mind it, trying to keep people alive. Also, adds a lot of power to that bottom side of the map as well. Not going to be tanky, not going to be able to utilize that subjugate all that well against what Harmolife have put together, because no one's a tank. No one at all.
Oh, top lane Kench,
Is
finally.
it happening?
No, of course it's not happening.
Yeah, no, that's not what we do here. And,
It's going to be now.
I think Na would make the most sense when it comes to T1 and Canna just in general.
Yeah.
I liked all of the other hovers a lot more. However, we will just get the Na, so no need to learn anything new here today, ladies and gentlemen. It is the classic Camille versus Na matchup. And Na should have a fair bit of pushing power in the early stages until Camille naturally takes over.
Yeah, it's a matchup that I'm not a fan of picking it into the Camille specifically, but it is comfort. It's something that T1 has done in the past. It's Kana's 100% go-to if the Jace is not banned. So it's an understandable choice here. I agree with you. Would have liked a lot of the other choices a lot as well. But we don't get that. We get Na, and Na does still provide an incredible amount of team fighting power. And with the Ezreal probably fine against the Lulu and the Ashe. There's the distinct possibility. Free up carrier, try and counteract that dueling potential that Chovy and Wheeler are gonna have. Look around the map, which we know carrier loves to do, enable other lanes with the pillar. And I wouldn't mind some early skirmishing with the Viego as well. We've seen in both LEC and LCS. Real Viego gameplay.
Oh yeah.
Was a lot of examples of why the champion is still as high, and the T1 composition is always going to be relevant, right? I think that the amount of pick potential, CC, and pop-off between Viego and Ezreal is always going to be a threat. Only think little lack of AP damage if you go too late.
Yeah, I think so too. Although Ezreal does offer a little bit himself, and the Frozen Thralls, ladies and gentlemen, never forget what can happen if one pick is made by T1. It is absolutely terrifying, especially with a Viego on the map. All of those resets. I love this combo a whole lot. I've been advocating for it all season long. Every time the Lissandra is picked, I get a little bit more excited about Viego.
I still feel like the perfect name for this combo has eluded us. Like, there's got to be something that just immediately makes it, yes, of course, that's and we have the opportunity, right? Because this is the final day of the split.
Yeah, I don't know whether Lissandra works or
no.
Yeah.
But I know you, Atlas. I'm sure you will be able to figure something out, and it gives us the opportunity to look at some of the early game possibilities that we have. Because the interesting thing about the Lulu is that, of course, it scales incredibly well, but outside of the laning phase, it doesn't provide as much. It will give you a lot of early game pushing power, which is nice. So that level 1 from Deft and Vista really strong, allow you to take early priority and put some pressure. But we also see Guma has gone for teleport. This is 100% I'm just going to sit in farm lane while we try and play around the rest of the map. And I think it also comes down to what extent Faker can find Prowl in that lane and roam to his possible sides, as expect that, especially that bot lane gonna be pushed in a lot. Kana early game will be fine, but post 6 has to play a lot more respectful when he doesn't have his Mega Bar, as Deft and Vista taking early control of this lane.
Yeah, well, have a look at level 1 Ashe. Definitely a lot of power, and has a Lulu now, so it's going to be even worse for T1 in theory. So level 1 priority certainly here, is Deft really kind of hoping that he gets a few of these minions. I believe was able to grab a few, but didn't see the money for the second one. As Vista just looking to try and make Gumayusi and Keриa's life a living hell. And that's what Lulu is very, very good at, as Kana gets a bit of a hop out. This is more of a doo-doo pick on the top side of the map for Morgan. I'm very interested in how he's actually going to play more of the aggressive split-pushing style, as he is more of the tank player, you know, he's more of the team fighter, and, you know, Camille can definitely team fight, but does need a few more strings to the bow to really reach her full potential, as Chovy and Faker going pretty ham against one another. You can see 9-15 showing the power of the Lissandra into the LeBlanc matchup. Doesn't always work out, but certainly is considered a very good pick, as close to an 80% win rate here for Faker on the champion. 15-4. Yeah. He's done this before, ladies and gentlemen.
It's been a while, and oh, look at his pathing. Willa, if he can. I wouldn't have minded to see them go for some early aggression with Ona also pathing towards bot side. And this is really nice, actually, right? Because Ona started bot and then pathed out towards top, has come back just to make sure that Deft and Vista, they didn't crash that huge wave into the turret, and then went for a very aggressive play. Don't actually know if they can go for this, as I think they might have to fall for this one. Faker, though, has Prio, is going to be on his way. Early skirmish is a little risky.
Chovy coming on in as well, though, and they do have control vision of that brush, so that will mean Harmalife Esports get on over here, and I think the bot priority really giving them some access there.
Yeah, and you expect this. I don't think as owner you ever actually have to change.
Oh, connect as Willa's coming in, but Ona is already here. Faker claws his way out. Now Ona looking for Willa, but no, not going to work out. Just Chovy. That's not the real one, as they are just going to back away from one another. Pretty similar health trades, but Willa getting the brunt of most of the danger. Will be relatively low. Finds the chains here as Chovy, so we're going to do a fair bit of damage here to Faker, who does need to be a bit careful. Chews through another charge of that corrupting potion.
And here we see the benefit of those early prio lanes. Yes, Lissandra is really good at shutting down LeBlanc, but Faker used his teleport to roam, so had prio there, but is now going to have to back if he wants to stay safe. Did cancel that, and with Willow also moving up, wonder if they're looking for an opportunity. Faker's low.
Danger. Yeah, Chovy didn't have distortion, so he's going to be throwing himself underneath this turret, as Willa is still here to back Chovy up. I like this protection. I like the fact that Chovy can now play around some jungle protection here.
Yeah, it's really nicely done, actually, I think, from both sides. Because Ona has also just been walking around the map, and a four-man dive on bot side. That's the aggression I want to see from Hanwha.
They have full information, even awarding this brush over here as well, as Keria and Gumayusi can move away from this turret, but regardless of that, they will still lose a fair bit of experience, As Guma getting taken down relatively low. Vista not even going to tank a turret shot as Ona is pulled over here. And it's just a bit of health and not actually too much to be denied here from T1. Armalife playing very defensively.
And I like that. You know that with Ona there, you can't really go for that. Even the teleport not being available, a 3 versus 4 with all the summoners still available, the exhaust there, and a Viego that can turn a skirmish around in seconds if even only a single person dies. You don't actually get to cash in on a dive. However, you have found yourself a double scuttle lead for your lead. Vista and Deft have been able to build up a fairly big experience and CS lead, and at this point it's a wave, but it's still something that I think Hanwha Life are showing here that they haven't shown us in a while, and once this actually gets picked up, Deft will be as far ahead as he was previously.
Yeah.
And that is finding early prio and then actually playing around it, right? Chovy moving out of his lane very early on. Willa also coordinating, getting the scuttle, looking for a dive very early, seeing Owner backing off. Just take the crab, walk toward the top side of the map, do the same. Go bot again to try and dive, and I'm loving this early proactive look from Hanwha.
Vista's diving on in here. He's got the Ignite onto Faker. Not as much healing from the Frozen Tomb as the Claw comes out. He flashes. Oh, Pix, can you help? Nope. Not going to be enough there as Faker's even going to eat some popcorn chicken on the way out.
Chicken almost got him, Atlas.
You gotta be careful. We've seen them be very, very angry in the past.
Oh, vengeful chicken. I remember the bomb delivery chicken.
Yes.
That was a beautiful moment, and the look of Hanwha Life early on there is great, and T1 is playing very aggressively, which I think with this comp is fine. This is not a comp that needs to get a lot of stuff done early on, right? It's about weathering the storm, and then post 6 you have a lot more opportunities available. Now Owner is Heartbreaker. Faker, once his ultimate is off cooldown, can set up a lot more plays. And obviously bot side, you're just looking to get Guma to that 2-item point. But I'm just pleasantly surprised by how well Hanwha Life is playing here.
Yeah, me too.
It's a really good look.
I'm also excited about the fact that they have they have picked for bottom lane priority as well in this Lulu, trying to get some lane dominance, which is, you know, a way that Deft has always been very good at playing. Well, maybe not always, not necessarily back in the Samsung Blue days, but since his time in the LPL, certainly has developed to be a very aggressive laning AD carry. And that certainly works when you can put on this extra pressure with your Enchanter support down here, especially onto something like the Trundle Ezreal that doesn't have a lot of power early. As Ona's going to get spotted. Willa is here as well. Full information given to our top laners. A bit of a boulder comes through. Ona just slinks around in the mist, and nothing's really going to come of this one.
Neither team wanting to commit to a very volatile 2v2. Note also Deft going for the Swifties here. And I think that's really nice on a couple of levels. In the lane, with the Lulu, obviously you outrange in terms of volley. You need to be careful with the Mystic shots, but that's a lot easier to stay away from. You get the additional attack speed from your Lulu anyway.
Yep.
And allowing Deft to move forward with much more impunity, to have to be less afraid of any possible pillars, is just incredibly nice, right? And the slows that are going to come through from T1 are going to have the same amount of impact as we are gearing up towards the fight. Everyone rotating over. Gumayushi not yet, but he does have teleport available, so T1 can choose to all in here, or can choose to just let Guma farm.
Chovy is going to have to deal with this trophy for a moment, as Vista has now joined his jungler. Chovy now getting out of the area as Deft turns up. Arrow's going to connect, even though the flash did go over the wall. Carrier is looking to get out of there as Naya. Big Naba. Just a little bit of a stun onto Willa, though, as now the rest of T1 all clumped together. No one has claimed this as finally HLE will go down, and now Hanwha Life. Are you going to start a fight? The chains connect, but they are broken, and T1 just walk away.
And once that flash had come through, I would have much rather seen T1 hold that teleport and just let Guma shove, right? At that point, I think you realize, okay, guys, this might not work out. We might not actually get the opportunity that we're looking for. We might not get the 5v5 fight that we so clearly want. And in that scenario, not investing the teleport is going to make you feel a lot better. Saving grace is that the wave state here is really, Guma was really nicely left by Guma, meaning it's going to shove into him. He's going to need to pick up most of it, whereas Deft has now lost his CS lead. So it's not the end of the world, and I understand the call because it's a split-second decision. Can't add a full Naba. Might have been calling, guys, I might have an angle here to go for a multiple-man stun. And now Gumayushi should be even on farm once this wave is picked back up, but you do give up the Rift Herald, and especially if Hanwha Live use the power that they have available to dive maybe a mini Gnar, and then get a first Turret Blood, it's still going to be a nice early game here for Hanwha.
No, I completely agree. And I think that, you know, leveraging your advantage as Deft as more of a utility AD carry is a very intelligent idea as well. Play around that in the early game, try and feed as much power to your Camille as possible, who does require a fair bit of investment to get going. As you can see, currently, Gnar has about a 100 gold advantage or something, but nothing to write home about, and it is about 200 gold, the lead here for Hanwha Live. So, still waiting for any team to grab any meaningful advantage this game, but I think that HLE should be a good avenue for that if Hanwha Live Esports use it intelligently. We can see right now, Willa running around with it. See where he decides to lay that one down as Vista trying to get a bit of damage onto Gumayushi as Willa starts off this Drake as well, as both neutral objectives in control of Hanwha Live Esports for now.
And I think the dynamic in this game is really interesting, as it will be the Ocean Drake going over with the Prio on bot side and Owner on top side of the map. Not a lot to be done about that, unfortunately. And again, using that great pushing power that you pointed out earlier, that is available to Deft and Vista. But considering not many Gnar, and there is Owner in the general vicinity, but not actually going to go for anything. Because for T1, you want a 2-0 here. Like, you want as badly as possible, get the 2-0 and then just hope that Gen.G can do it. You know, you become the biggest Gen.G fan for the next series. But you do need a 2-1 here if you want to make your odds the highest possible.
Ooh, Arrow gets a flash out of Deft getting feisty down here.
And that was in a 1v1.
Advantage on the health bar as well. And yeah, you're exactly right. Arcane Shift once again very defensively, and Deft don't need no support to put this kind of pressure on.
No, Vista's just chilling.
That's the Swifty advantage, dude. That's what it is. Swifty advantage.
It's, at this point in the game, Ashe is just so much stronger, right? Because you can see the power that the volley provides, and the unfortunate thing about playing into Ashe, and it always has been, is that if Ashe decides that you are going to trade, then you will, right? There's not a lot to be done about it due to the nature of Frost Shot and Volley. And as an Azrael at this point in the game, you don't even have your Sunderer. You don't have anywhere close to a actual amount of damage. So you don't want to trade at all. But Ashe says, we will trade. So then you are forced to, and we see Guma earlier on there just trying to get out, oversteps his boundaries. Well, is there?
That's a big Gnar from Canna into the wall. We'll see who's going to win out on this one, as there comes the ultimate from Morgan, but the Viego's going to come through. Some low health bars already, as it's a disengaged kick. And the hook shot is going to get Morgan back underneath his turret, but T1 do reign supreme. The Rift Herald still not put down, as it actually just, sort of timed out, but was about to. And instead is put down in a place where it's not really going to get too much value, as Faker not going to collect his aftershock there, unfortunately, as Chovy still putting on the pressure here. Faker will be able to get himself out. The teleport of the HLE.
That's so good, because I was ready to call it for HLE. Now Operation Escort HLE to the turret. Can we do it?
These are the type of quests that are the most boring, but if it works out, it's going to be very valuable, as Canna almost has that Gnar bar back up again, and HLE is going to be exterminated. T1 denies so much of that extra control that Hanwha had, and some of those cracks are now showing.
And that is nice. But still, you're getting pushed in everywhere. The existence of Owner on the top side of the map is able to mitigate the impact of HLE. Doesn't actually charge into the turret, and it's nice for Kana. But it also means Chovy can just shove in, pick himself up a plate while Faker is backed. And Faker doesn't want to use his teleport, because I think this teleport is one that you want to use to try and impact the rest of the map. You know, maybe a bot lane overextension, a collapse on top side, actually get an objective out of that, so he can't really go for that. Plates have now dropped, and this is one of the first times in, I think, quite a while that we see T1 on the back foot in terms of early game gold, because their early games have been so aggressive, and they've been doing basically what Hanwha is doing right now.
Yeah, and if you look at the stats, you wouldn't be too sad as a T1 fan, as right now you're certainly not, as Morgan is just going to get taken out pretty comfortably here. Owner's going to turn into a Camille for a little while. and that's going to help take down a bit of this turret. Of course, no plating, so not going to be able to collect that, but still first turret blood to go over to T1, and maybe it's just a little bit later, but now the advantages are starting to come through for T1.
Yeah. Just before the 50-minute mark. There we go. Back to the lead.
Perfect. There we go.
All according to plan, Atlas.
It's all part of the stats. You got to make sure you nail it. As Carrier might be in a little bit of trouble here, as the Q's going to miss from Willa. There's the kick into the wall. As Carrier gets that subjugate down, flashes away. True Shot Barrage doesn't find anyone, but because of all of the maneuvering, they're not able to actually close the distance onto Carrier. But Flash now down for the Trundle, and still some pressure as Arrow is going to connect there to Guma. As Def going very aggressive 1v2. Vista's going to turn up for the extra shielding and additional help. Ona's going to be able to take Shirley down as T1 taking some advantages elsewhere on the map.
I was about to commend Hanwha Live for going for that play, but then not committing the arrow, because it allows you to have a much better setup at the upcoming Drake in 20 seconds. And then before I get the opportunity to say it, that's like, no, we're going to go in.
Hey, if you take people off the map though, then you're gonna have better setup.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm loving it. This is a really good look, and I think Deft individually has looked a lot better in summer than he did in spring, but it hasn't really led to anything because the state of Hanwha as a team has just been lackluster. As you do still need to respect here as Kana and Ona, there is teleport available, but it is, I think for T1, they're still biding their time, which I think is fine. Yes, the scaling on Hanwha is great in terms of obviously Camille in the side lane. A Lulu is going to make every carry on your team stronger. We know the impact that a LeBlanc can have, even in mid to late game when she's able to blow up targets. But as T1, your team fights are amazing. The lack of reliable, consistent AP damage outside of the Lissandra, not the biggest issue when the lineup is relatively squishy.
Yeah.
And loving this back and forth here. It's a really cool game, Atlas.
It is. Certainly a lot more cerebral than I was expecting. I was kind of expecting a bit of a snowball here, but it's not the way that it has turned out. As we've got one Dragon apiece and a Mountain Soul on the Rift, as Chovy being a little bit frustrating.
Just a little bit.
Former teammate in Carrier is just going to get booped by the LeBlanc a little, as Carrier shows Chovy his trophy. Now Hanwha just trying to play some defense here. T1 feeling like they're back in their element as they move towards the mid-game, threatening with this amazing team fighting composition. And Chronicler, is it about time for a bit of a rant about outcomes and possibilities?
I think we'll have some time, because there's no objectives on the map.
Yeah.
Might have a little shove going on in mid, but Atlas, take it away.
I'll try and be as succinct as possible. And so these are the scenarios after W10D4ㅅLCK secured their 2-0. They 100% advanced straight to playoff round 2, thus claiming their world's position. There are no tiebreakers regarding W10D4ㅅLCK. The game score is absolutely too high. Regardless of the game score, if T1 loses here today, as we do have a little bit of trading, and Morgan is going to get a nice little stun there. Ona does come through, but Vista and Willa are closing in. There's the ulti from Morgan. Can they lock down Ona? It's a big Nara into the wall. Ona tries to flash away, but Morgan is immediately after him. Now Kana down to about half as Vista has to flash away. Good safeguard to help keep him safe, but Willa's going to have to sacrifice himself for it as Chovy has now teleported in. Shanes will connect onto Kerry, who gets taken down low. Now Deft trying to funnel them through here. Doesn't have the arrow, but there's the volley onto Faker. Claw of Doom to come through as Faker may have sacrificed himself, but no, he has the Frozen Tomb. And now Morgan diving in one more time. T1, their health bars are so low, but it does not matter. They finish off the Camille and win out in the skirmish.
And that's a high-risk commit there from T1 to go in back after that. Extended trades against the Lulu are always going to leave you terrified, but it works out in the end. Play doesn't start off great, and I feel like this is a big risk you're taking as T1, considering that you are very deep in the enemy territory. Even with that turret going down, Owner is desperately looking for an attempted reset. What we see though is that he gets taken down, really nicely done by Vista as well, finding the early knock-up there on top of Morgan. And then here, it's looking a little scary for T1, but reinforcement arrive in the form of Gumayushi, as well as Faker, who teleports in. And then here I think they're gonna call it off. And this is a beautiful setup that is found here. Faker going in, baiting the immediate exhaust that comes through, and then Morgan is kind of forced to commit, because if he doesn't go in there, they kill Deft 100%. And then if he dies, everyone else goes anyway, because you lose so much of your consistent damage. But still, yeah, it's a nice pickup, but Humble Life was able to get the kill themselves as well, and no actual objective was found.
Yeah, not too much for it, as Faker not going to find the Circle of Frost. Ring of Frost, sorry, I believe is what it's actually called. It's been a while since I've done my homework when it comes to Lysandra, but that's okay. Just have to remember the tomb, and then you're basically fine. As now Faker, he's not so fine. He's going to have to claw his way over that wall, and does so. As we are just going to see Humble Life Esports take down this outer turret. Pillar notwithstanding. They will steal away some chickens as well. So, brute forcing that mid turret, definitely good as Canna. Well and truly out in front when it comes to both levels and the gold. Yeah, he will hit 14 before anyone else on the map.
Yeah, the spikes that are now hit for T1 are humongous, because you have 2 items in Gumayushi. Ezreal is now a legitimate champion, can do things, has a Divine Thunder as well as the Maramune, so the damage that's going to come through of that is devastating. And I think one of the strongest 2 item spikes, it's either Gore Drinker, Starex, or rather Gore Drinker, or Divine Thunder with that Starex now done.
Yep.
And that's, if you're not humongously ahead, it's already terrifying. But he is. He's very far ahead. And this is a position that now for Humble Life, Morgan scaling into this matchup is very far away. I think you're looking towards 3 items at the very least, which is a good 10-15 minutes with the current pace that it's going, which is not great if you're looking at Humble Life, but the team fighting is still strong. But it comes more about how much can Willer and Chovy burst, and can Deft do consistent damage. Also has the Wits End available, and I thought you were going to have the time to explain us all the implications, but then they just started fighting!
And there were no kills until now, as Kerry is going to have to flash to get out of the way of that chain. Chovy still being aggressive, gets himself a bit of a help picks there as well. Keep him safe. Now Canna looking for some boomerangs, does not find any, as Willer now will force out an arcane shift. That is about that. As we've got 10 seconds on this first Mountain Drake of the game. You can see neither team wanting to give this one up. Claw comes through. It's a really nice pillar, as we're not going to be able to get over the wall, and Willer will just be taken down. Beautifully cancelled there. No safeguard for you, my friend, as now Carrier in a bit of trouble. That's an exhaust immediately onto Chovy. He does have to use that Mimic Distortion to get himself over the other wall. And now Humble Life Esports on the definite defense, as Canna has a big knob up and will be slowed down by that Frost Shot, as Chovy getting really chunked here by T1, who should be able to go over and grab their first Mountain Drake of the game. I'm feeling a shift, Chronicler. I feel like T1 have really gathered some control here since the mid-game.
It's been really nicely done. I think even the early game, where Humble Life was able to get a couple of leads, you saw that T1 was very clearly also playing defensively, where Ona's main job was just to track Willer, and he was generally there when he needed to be. He was moving around the map, he was keeping track of the lead, looking for possible dive opportunities against his teammates, and then there when those arose. And it's just the power of this composition if you can get a single target, and it's, of course, it's Aria that actually sets it up. Didn't even see that pillar, but
Frozen Tomb stopping him mid-safeguard as well. That was very, very sad. And then it was the Lee Sin sandwich in the wall.
Yep. Very unfortunate, because if that pillar doesn't hit, Willer just safeguards out, and he's fine. It's that split second that gives a Fake an opportunity to go for the ultimate. And yeah, it's a really interesting momentum turn from T1, considering that comp, it makes sense, right? Because we saw the early prior from Humble Life, and I think that Humble Life later on that really nicely as Kana is going to get collapsed upon.
Yeah, that's going to be a really nice stun there from the hook shot immediately. The ulti comes out, and the ultimatum was pretty brutal onto Kana there, who will just be eviscerated. But the rest of T1 now moving towards this mid lane. They will hopefully be able to trade something for the death of their Nah, but no, not going to be able to quite do it here, as the arrow is going to connect onto Faker, denied the claw, as the kick actually moves more to save him, as Willer is going to get ulted by the Lulu. Now Def trying to chase after them, Chovy looking for Carrier, as Faker goes golden for some reason. Might have been a little bit of a mistake, but does find the claw once again, but Vista will be able to take him down. Now the rest of Humble Life Esports, they're so mobile, they're closing in. And it is going to be Carrier taken down. Deft destroying one of his best friends. Very sad, but this is the Rift. It is do or die for these players.
Alphas are low.
Very much trying to deny this. Gumayushi is still uber dangerous.
There's Kana
against Humble Life Esports, but so is Def. Close to full health as Guma looking to try and take the blast going, but Def finds the auto attack. And Willa's still keeping this Baron leash. Now Cannon's trying to get out of there, but the Frost Shot is slowing him down, and HLE Esports are just killing them one by one by one. Cannon now trying to turn this, does almost have the Narbar, but he's polymobbed. And he was adorable before. He's even more adorable and then dead, unfortunately. And TWon, that's a lot of losses, one after the other.
And I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be worth it. They do hold the Baron, and that's your main goal. Giving up that Baron would have been such a boon for the Humble Life comp, where you see, once they're the one who decides the pace, when they're the one who can go for the opportunities, who can find the re-engage there after TWon gets greedy, trying to attempt a punish for the play on Kana on bot side. It is just beautifully done, and this is just an overextension. Really nice flash hookshot there from Morgan to deny Kana getting away, and then of course Chovy's the one enabling that play by teleporting behind. And then, yeah, Guma, it's an Ashe. You're never getting away, unfortunately. Just the final orders coming through there is really nicely done. But this is very early, and that's the reason why this doesn't lead to Owner and Kana just getting blown up and then going back and taking down the Baron. The death timers are short. He got so close.
This polymorph, man.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
And yeah, looked really bad to go one by one. Could have played out a lot cleaner. But the main thing is they didn't get Baron.
Yeah, denying the Baron, definitely a good.
That's the most, the way you go about it could have been, I think, a lot cleaner. And it all goes back, and we didn't see that in the replay, but it's understandable, because what TWon tried to do is the moment that Kana knew that he was getting caught, when the moment Morgan was flashing, we saw the pings go down. It's like, okay, let's go for this turret, go for this turret. And that's an okay idea, if not for the fact that you know how good this chase is from Humble Life. These are all either highly mobile carries, in the case of Morgan, Willa, and Chovy, or it's people with insane sticking and chasing power, in the case of Death especially, as he did there if he hits an arrow, but even just Volley, Lulu, and Swifties with Shirelias is going to make you zoom towards the enemy team. Now Humble Life.
Yeah, Deft is doing a lot of damage right now. Rage Blade is now completed, and that's only going to even augment that further, as that's a flash over the wall from Chovy. Faker just dives in on top of him, as he does get the Whimsy shield, but he's now out of the fight as Ona dives into the pit, but he's just taken down. Willa will be exhausted, but all 5 members are still alive on Humble Life, and they're the ones with a smite in this pit. No, they're not actually. Willa, it's on cooldown as Morgan looking to dive in. This is going to be shaky because they have to try and wait out a smite, or just try and battle it with the damage that they have. They look for the turn instead, and Morgan just takes down the backline. Faker going golden, but unfortunately, he is not going to be able to do anything in the shadow of his own trophy provided by Carrier. He will be taken out. Gumyushi over the wall. Just don't think he's going to be able to do anything. And Hanwha, they win another fight, and it looks like this time they'll be able to get a Baron.
And it is an all-or-nothing attempt to try and take down Chovy. And as it turns out, it's not 78 health on the Baron. That could have been a disaster.
It's like Willa didn't even need the smite as it turned out. They should have just taken it.
And that is a really big difference, I think, between the Humble Life that we see here before us today and the Humble Life that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. That call to not finish that Baron, to not go for the flip, to not say, of course, you can also argue, don't start up Baron if you don't have Smite, which I think in this scenario, I don't mind Humble Life trying to force as much as possible, try and skirmish. Because TWon, I think, in a straight-up 5v5, if they're the one who have map control, is still really strong. What's happening instead is TWon is like, they're just scrambling the whole time, right? Like, they're trying to make a play, they're trying to, they're doing Baron, they're going in. What do we do? And in this scenario, it's, again, the value of this Lulu coming through here, and it is just so nicely done, right? Like the value that Vista provides here, the polymorph again, then the shielding that comes through, the health bars that stay relatively high, and then this call to not risk it, right? Just leave the Baron at high enough health, knowing that you'll be able to win the fight. Ultimate's already used. Gumayushi doesn't get any damage done.
Not really, and Deft does so much. Just watching him constantly kiting, starting all the fights whenever he wants to with his arrow, now has himself his QSS, so he's just not afraid of anything that TWon can put down. I was actually skeptical of the fact that he took heal instead of cleanse, but you're just going to build yourself QSS. I guess you don't necessarily need it. Plus he has a Lulu, his owner takes half of his health bar, as Chovy just goes over and gives him a hug, a very dangerous hug.
This is just an insane game for Deft. Like we've seen glimpses of this depth, I think, throughout some. We go back to some of the games, but it never came together for Humble Life. And is this too late? I think one can argue. But let's not forget
the
miracle run is possible, Atlas. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And we joke about it, but it actually is. And if there's one thing that we've seen, it's that the current state of the LCK is in such flux that it's impossible to call who are, even at this point, the strongest team. I guess you'd argue TWon, but who knows, right? Like, I don't know. T1 clearly doesn't know, because I don't think they expected Humble Life to show up the way that they did here today. And let's not forget, we didn't get to do the rant yet. But the very easy thing, T1 wants the 2-0, and that's right now looking
let's have a look at what happens if T1 loses, though, because that's looking like somewhat of a possibility here, considering the 7,000 gold lead for Humble Life Esports. So, if Nongshim win, Nongshim are first, and TWon are second. That is set in stone, because Nongshim, no one else can make it to 12 victories. I do not believe. 12 or 13, something like that. So whichever number, they're the only team that can get
That's if they lose the series, right?
That's if they lose this series in any way whatsoever, as Arrow will connect onto Gumayushi, but he's well and truly underneath his inhibitor turret, so he will be okay for now.
Continue.
So, if Nongshim lose 1-2, then TWon are first, and Nongshim are second. If Nongshim lose 0-2, then Genji are second. So Genji fans rejoice. If Humble Life Esports win here, then Genji stands a chance of escaping round 1 of the playoffs, which is huge, because you are so close to then guaranteeing your own world spot because of the amount of championship points you had by coming second in the spring season.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's nutty. However, there are some other scenarios as well. If T1 get a 2-0 victory and then Nongshim win, then Nongshim are first and TWon are second. If Nongshim lose, then TWon are first and T1 are second.
Yeah, that 2-0, I don't... that's 2-0 opportunity. It's possible still, but...
Okay, so let's go to a potential 2-1 victory for T1. Then if Nongshim win, then Nongshim are first and TWon are second, because if Nongshim win at all, then they're going to be first. If Nongshim lose 1-2, then TWon are first, Nongshim are second. Nongshim and T1 are then tied, but Nongshim won against them in both round 1 and 2, and therefore they will win the head-to-head and therefore come out on top. But if Nongshim are 0-2 against Genji, then T1 are second once again. So, it all comes down to what happens in the later series today. However, there are a couple of possible outcomes where T1 can still make it, right? So it doesn't matter necessarily whether or not T1 are going to be able to win 2-0 or 2-1, but just the ways that they're going to get there are going to be slightly different. So 8,000 gold lead for Humble Life Esports as I bring myself back to the video game at hand. It's quite difficult with all these different scenarios, but I hope it makes somewhat sense to you guys.
It's so fun, though, because it matters so much for these teams. Like, that playoff bye is huge, but even getting as high up in the standings as you possibly can and the amount of mobility that we still available, with the extremely volatile matchups as they are, right? Like, there's a possibility of TWon not ending, or rather, no, TWon is always through, but like Nongshim ending up in like 3rd place, but then think back to what Nongshim has done this entire split. Like, they've been pretty insane.
They have. There are still a lot of scenarios where I believe even if they lose, they still be able to potentially get a 2nd place, just given the fact that they do have a fair few points. So thankfully they are rewarded for how well they did in the regular season, but it's just so many teams so extraordinarily close here in these standings, and we do have potential tiebreakers as well, ladies and gentlemen. We will go over those implications after this match, but it's largely to do with what happens if Genji loses, because Genji could be in 6th place, I believe, as they could potentially tie with Afrika Freaks and then have to play a tiebreaker, and if they lose, then Afrika are 5th. That's the world we live in. It's crazy.
It's madness, but and this is what T1 is doing here, if you have been paying attention to the actual video game. Well, not that much has happened. Base has not been broken open definitively, but of course the state right now for T1 isn't great. Faker!
Oh yeah, Faker just going to be chain CC'd, and he can't even claw his way out. Now Morgan looking for Carrier. He's put into the Hextech ultimatum, and he doesn't have the answer for it. It's a double kill for Chovy, and Humble Life Esports now have a purple worm on a silver platter.
And I was just about to launch it. How can T1 come back? Because while it's unlikely, it's not impossible. They do still have a lot of initial blow-up power, but you need Faker. You need it. All starts with that Lissandra, because Lissandra is the one that sets up for a possible Gnar play, right? If Kana finds a multi-man stun, that's fine, but without the setup, it's probably not getting that.
On anti-owner duty. Let's see what they can do. They dive into the pit alongside him. He goes golden, but the Baron not in smite range just yet. The Baron's going to be taken by Willa, and the Viego is taken down as well. Faker has teleport, but he's not alive for another 5 seconds time. Now, T1, what are they going to do? There's no Drake to answer. All the waves are pushed towards them. Their options are really running low, and this is probably the best mid to late game we've seen from Humble Life Esports all season long.
100%. Yeah, I don't think anything can be even close, and it is a even more vivacious kind of renaissance
like
that we're seeing here. Yeah, no, but it's similar to what we saw happen to teams like KT and DRX once it was clear that it was over. Yep. Right? Like, you play without any pressure. You're just playing to play as well as you possibly can. And then also, here the Nerza steals, like, no, we're just going to let the Baron, let it sit. And Owner is forced to just smite to try and stay alive and maybe get a Miracle Steal that way. Doesn't even keep him alive for long enough, dies immediately afterwards. Willa is just sitting there, ready to go. And now, this is a gold lead that should be insurmountable. It requires immense amount of mistakes. Humble Life walking into multiple people or getting hit by a Gnar in a position that they should not be in. And it's not just, like, yes, it's been enabled by, I think, Deft in particular, having an absurd game, but Vista is looking like Spring Vista again, where he was legitimately one of the better supports, right? Morgan,
I think, is a real highlight this game, because this is not the type of playstyle he is necessarily known for, right?
Proper tank.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is like team fighting Camille, but also skirmishing, like being aggressive, and that is what Morgan really has been lacking. Not this game. He's looked real good as, oh my goodness, that little tap onto Gumayushi will send him packing, as this inhibitor will be the first one to go down, as Humble Life Esports really putting the screws in. Morgan splitting on the bottom side. Willa's in the mid lane. We've got all of these waves just greeting T1. Is this Nexus tower going down extraordinarily quickly with these double siege minions?
They can't even clear.
Yeah, Chovy going to be able to get out of there with the distortion. The claw is not going to be opted in for whatsoever. And the next inhibitor will go down, and everything's just falling like dominoes in the T1 base. And now just all grouping under this one last lone bastion of hope, but it's another arrow that connects onto Faker. He does manage to get his Zhonya's off, and everyone's going golden. Faker is now going to use his ultimate, but it's not going to be enough. Chovy just dives in on top of him now. Owner trying to keep himself alive as Morgan's right in there in the back line, and the wallets are so heavy. Hanwha flashing forward, and Kana will be the last one to go down. Humble Life Esports, a clean ace outside of Willa falling down, and the Nexus will also fall. 38 minutes, and Humble Life Esports will topple T1.
It's the last game of the split. Might as well play some of the best league you've shown all season. Why not, Atlas?